Damaged Defenders by Sherza. Chapter 90. Peter. That night, Peter slept better than he had since he'd been bitten. It wasn't like it was all over. Aunt May still didn't know about, Spider-Man or that Uncle Ben's death was his fault. Okay, the rational part of his brain knew that last was a bunch of nonsense. He hadn't shot Uncle Ben himself, so not his fault. But most of him was still stuck on the fact that Uncle Ben wouldn't have even been in that part of town if it hadn't been for him, which made it his fault. Still, Aunt May's reaction to the news of the spider bite and resultant powers had been a huge relief. He felt sort of stupid for thinking she'd react badly, which kind of made him think he was overreacting at least about the Uncle Ben thing, too. Though he was pretty sure she'd blow a gasket over Spider-Man. Just because Peter had been running around doing stuff with not fully tested and understood abilities. Not the fact that Spider-Man was him. Anyway, with the one load off his mind, he'd slept like a log. Which was probably just as well. Because Aunt May had gotten him up bright and early. She'd cooked a big breakfast for them both and basically stuffed Peter silly, then sent him off to dress for their appointment at Stark Tower. He hadn't been able to resist the urge to hug her when she came out of her room dressed in her Sunday best. Because seriously, it was adorable, awesome, and kind of alarming all at the same time. Peter rather strongly suspected she'd dressed up like that as a way to psych herself up to go to war for him if necessary, and definitely to impress the Avengers, which... yeah. Peter didn't think she'd have to defend him, but if she ever did, Peter was totally betting on her. She had always been the fierce one between her and Uncle Ben, and Peter was willing to bet she could mom every last Avenger straightened to defeat. It was actually kind of hilarious to think about, really. She hugged him back, then put him at arm's length, and looked him up and down. "You look like a ruffian, Peter," she scolded, her tone more affectionate than anything else. "Aunt May, I'm going to be bouncing around testing my powers. Besides, they've already met me. Dressing to impress is..." Peter shrugged. "Kind of beside the point now. And I didn't get the impression they cared about that sort of thing. I mean, Miss Potts probably does when she's dealing with SI business, but she was one of two in really snazzy clothes. The other one was totally some sort of government spook, even if he was trying not to act like it. The sort where two-piece suits are considered business casual. Everybody else was running around in tees and jeans sort of clothes." Aunt May huffed a little, but then nodded. "All right, if you're sure." Peter hitched his backpack holding his suit. Aunt May probably assumed it was a change of clothes, which it was, technically, into a better position, and they headed out the door. He'd been right about her getting ready to go to war. Aunt May visibly braced herself as they got closer to the tower. It made him want to hug her again, but he refrained in deference to the fact they'd get run down by the rest of the foot traffic. They stopped at the desk. Peter wasn't entirely sure he had clearance to just go right up. And even if he did, Aunt May definitely didn't. "Welcome back, Peter," one of the secretaries at the big desk said. After a second, Peter remembered her from his first visit. "Who's this you've got with you?" "My Aunt May. She's the boss of me," Peter said with a grin. "Could you ask if we can go up?" The secretary consulted with someone over her earpiece and then waved them towards the bank of elevators. "You're both welcome to head up. You remember the right one, Peter." "Kind of hard to forget," Peter said with a laugh, then led Aunt May to the red and gold elevator doors. Whatever Aunt May'd been planning got derailed just a little, because John and Rogue were the ones to meet them. Again. More importantly, the entertainment floor looked to be pretty empty, with only Miss Potts in evidence. "Hey, John. Rogue," Peter greeted them with a grin. "This is my Aunt May." "Told her?" John asked, then nodded to Aunt May. "Ma'am?" "Yeah, it was going to get impossible to hide if I started hanging out here any kind of time," Peter admitted, and probably got slapped on the arm by Aunt May. "Just how long," Aunt May said, sounding irritated, "were you planning on hiding this from me if events hadn't conspired to force you into telling me?" Peter ducked his head and shuffled his feet sheepishly, which was apparently answer enough because he got another arm smack. "Young man," Aunt May scolded. There was an unexpected laugh, and Miss Potts came around one of the couches to greet them. "Sounds like you have him well in hand, Miss Parker," May filled in. "May Parker. I'm Peter's aunt and guardian." Aunt May shot Peter a speaking look. "He didn't tell me until last night that he'd been Well, I suppose the best word for it is affected by a spider bite. Which had Miss Potts looking at him with what he was pretty sure was exasperated amusement. I know the type, Miss Potts said. Peter wasn't quite sure whether to be thrilled he had something in common with Tony Stark or horrified that what he had in common was, well, disappointing the people that cared about them. You've actually caught us at a really good time. Most of the Avengers are on the exercise floor. They all seem to prefer working out in the mornings, Miss Potts said. It's the next floor down. John and Rogue can take you there. I do it myself, but unfortunately business waits for no one, especially when Mr. Stark is off-world. Miss Potts made a slight face that, unless Peter was much mistaken, might be the beginnings of awe and or disbelief. And I'm still trying to get used to saying that and it being both possible and true. Yeah, I'm not even really in on that, and I keep getting bowled over by it, Peter admitted. Well, it was good to meet you, Miss Parker, and hopefully we'll cross paths again when there's a chance to talk a bit more, Miss Potts said, offering a handshake, which Aunt May took her up on, and then she disappeared into the elevator. Wow! Peter said, staring at the elevator door for a minute. I mean, anyone who knows anything about SI knows she's pretty much made of awesome and win, but it's... yeah, meeting her is something else. That got a laugh out of John and Rogue both. She's a little terrifying when she's on a roll, Rogue admitted. I kind of want to be her when I grow up now, because you're right, awesome and win, and she totally has Tony whipped too. Well, as much as is humanly possible anyway. I don't think anyone or anything can completely get him under control. Once Jarvis, and if that wasn't cool, Peter honestly didn't know what was, told them the elevator was clear, they all piled in and headed to the next floor. Peter took one look and sort of whimpered. Clint was to one side, working his arms on a machine loaded with a sort of weight that still made Peter cringe and ow reflexively at, even though it was well within his abilities now. Remy and Black Widow both were bouncing around some gymnastics equipment in what was clearly a competition of sorts. Peter was totally rooting for Remy because Black Widow scared him. Dr. Banner was doing some sort of yoga-ish something or other, or maybe one of those martial arts with a lot of flowing meditative moves. Peter wasn't quite sure which. Logan was there too, but he wasn't exercising, at least not at the moment anyway. He did have the sweat damp look going, which said he'd been doing something before they'd arrived though. He was currently watching Bruce with a very odd look on his face. Probably because he wasn't busy, Logan was the first to actually react to their entrance, whether or not he noticed them first. Hey, the shrimp's back, Logan called. Oh, a name I haven't been called before, Peter snarked, his mouth apparently deciding to act without checking in with his brain first. Tell me another one. I got a laugh from more than one source. Dr. Banner straightened out of his, well, whatever that had been. Your timing's pretty good, Peter, he said. Not everything's complete, but I can tell you that thus far whatever happened to you does seem stable. So barring unforeseen circumstances, which are definitely a possibility these days. Dr. Banner looked a little rueful. You shouldn't lose your abilities or start growing more legs or spinnerets or anything of that nature. Peter heaved out a sigh of relief. Aunt May, though, was not for being so easily reassured. And just how sure are you? She demanded to know. Aunt May! Peter squawked. This is Dr. Banner! He wouldn't say something if it wasn't true. Dr. Banner looked distinctly amused. Well, Tony's is the best equipment money can buy or build, he said. There's always a margin for error with this sort of thing simply because we don't know, at least yet, how it came about. But the likelihood of a problem without the influence of outside factors is less than 10%, even with just the initial reports. Aunt May did look mollified at that, finally. At any rate, I think it's safe enough to test his abilities. Everybody's volunteered to help where they can, Dr. Banner said. Peter had a feeling they'd volunteered more to have something to take their minds off the crap that had been dumped on their heads lately than out of any deep interest in him and his abilities. He really didn't mind. So, what, want me to change? Peter asked. Not right away. We figured we'd do a few more mundane tests before we started getting inventive, Dr. Banner said. For instance, He led Peter over towards a weight set. But this wasn't just any weight set. This was the sort of weight set that Peter was pretty sure Arnold Schwarzenegger would have had difficulty with even in his heyday. Let me guess. Thor uses these, Peter said. Yep, and Steve and Loki. Logan too, when he's in the right mood for it. Dr. Banner said, the equipment on that side of the room is all Sanders person stuff, which, if you're having trouble telling what should be heavy and what shouldn't, is probably well within your abilities to handle. Plus, the low end of these is the same as the high end of the regular people weights. So if I can lift the light stuff here, I'd pretty much be out of the others, Peter said, and dropped his backpack against a nearby souped-up treadmill. Seriously, the thing was a Tony special, apparently hooked up to a vehicle motor that was in turn powered by an arc reactor to get the speeds the supers on the team could reach when running. It was enough to give Peter a complex, even if he had a suspicion he could manage on the thing, and that he would be soon enough. Dr. Banner insisted on proper weightlifting form, which... Okay, Peter could see his point, even if it turned out that lifting the lightest of the weights was ridiculously easy. Want me to juggle it? Because this sort of feels like picking up a bald piece of paperwood, Peter said. Dr. Banner huffed a laugh and motioned for him to put it down, then indicated one of the weights in the middle range of the super weights. Still ridiculously light, Peter said, resisting the increasing urge to juggle the thing. Aunt May would kill him. He worked his way through all the weights without finding one that came anywhere close to feeling like too much, which was a bit disconcerting when Dr. Banner told him the heaviest of the weights was roughly half a ton, about double the Olympic record for weightlifting. Tony's working on heavier weights, but it's a bit of a challenge, Dr. Banner said. Not just finding materials that won't warp or collapse with that sort of weight hanging off of a relatively small area, but finding some place to put an exercise facility with weights that heavy. Can't put stuff like that in the tower. Yeah, no, a gym with weights in excess of a ton in a skyscraper would be bad, Peter agreed. Alright, it's probable that given you can handle half a ton without a problem, a full ton is at the very least within your abilities, even if it might not be ridiculously easy. Let's see how you are with speed. This at least turned out to have a limit the existing equipment could manage. Peter was definitely a lot faster than a normal human, but nowhere near beating car speeds. He topped out at about 50 miles per hour, and that would definitely be sprinting, not marathons, as just getting up to that speed, at a reasonable speed-up rate, left him a little breathless. He could probably keep that speed up for a minute or two, but not much more than that. Those two tests done, they got to the fun stuff, testing the limits of his agility off the ground. We'd better clear out and head for the observation room, Dr. Banner told Aunt May, pointing to a small room off to one side. They're liable to range all over for this. Remy and Natasha have a distressing tendency to do so when it's just the two of them. Add testing Peter into this. He looked amused as he herded Aunt May towards the observation room. Peter swallowed hard. She'd see, but for this, he needed his suit. Regular clothes just were a problem. They bunched up and just generally got in the way. And besides, changing would give him a minute or two to get his head around having to work with, of all people, Black Widow! I need to change real quick, he said, then grabbed his backpack and bolted for the men's locker room tucked against one wall.